Next session is a panel discussion. This is on building high performance organization, leveraging high maturity practices. This is being moderated by Shankar from QAI and has Kamlesh from QAI, MURALI from Mettler-Toledo International, KOMAL from L&T Infotech, and LEENA from Capgemini. Welcome to the panel discussion. This panel will focus on some relevant and interesting aspects of impact of high maturity practices in different organizational contexts. I think the customer constraining stuff is definitely a context that you might want to talk about as well. For those starting the first time, sustaining would also be there. So welcome, Shankar, please take over the panel discussion.
Thanks, Mukul, for that. So maybe is there a way to stop the screen share so that the panelists could be fully visible?
I think.
Yeah, I think that should be good enough, right? Yeah, thanks. Yeah. So good afternoon, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, right? Before we get started, I'll just take a minute to quickly introduce the panelists. I'm wondering if LEENA got dropped, right? So I'll introduce the other available panelists right now. Okay, so we have KOMAL Machinder, who is quality head at L&T Infotech. She was also earlier associated with Johnson Controls. She has multiple decades of experience and a lot of experience in terms of process improvement and driving business excellence and quality, right? And we also have MURALI. MURALI has more than 25 years of experience, in India, as well as global experience in mission critical software systems. And he has also, spearheaded large project assignments across the full product development, life cycle per se, right? So LEENA is back. Okay, so LEENA is Vice President and Head of Quality at Capgemini Technology Services India Limited. And again, she has experience in a wide variety of industries, including pharma, manufacturing, and IT, and also process consultancy, right? And of course, finally, we have KAMLESH KOTHARI. KAMLESH again has got very deep experience, right? He is a high maturity lead appraiser for CMMI development, CMMI services, and one of the few lead appraisers all over the world to also have a PCMM lead appraiser qualification. So welcome to all of you, right? So I'd like to start with my first question, to LEENA, right? And then maybe Komal can answer. So each of you have been trying to use CMMI version 2.0, and your journey may be at in different stages. Compared to the earlier model, right? Have you seen any significant takeaways, benefits, or any significant challenges with respect to CMMI 2.0? Especially in the context of building a high performance organization. LEENA? I think there is some challenge with LEENA's thing. Komal, do you want to get started in the meanwhile?
Yeah, this particular model, as you can see, I mean, the CMMI every time, then when they come up with a new revision, it always goes deeper and deeper and make sure that it's all inclusive. So that is exactly what we are seeing in this model, that it not only includes the project manager level, but it's also involving the senior management at all the levels. And that is why it is, like growing from the bottom.
LEENA, you wanted to give your perspective on this, and I do not know whether you heard the question. If you want, I can repeat the question.
LEENA, you are on mute.
Yeah, Shankar, could you repeat it, please?
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah. So primarily I was asking, right, organizations have been adopting CMMI version 2.0, right? Any significant benefits or challenges you've been seeing, especially with respect to the 2.0 version, in the context of also building a high performance organization?
I think involvement of top management has been definitely one of the key contributors there. Also from an appraisal standpoint, the different changes that have been brought in 2.0, I think adds value to the entire appraisal process in terms of the ATMs getting certified, passing the examination, the projects getting sampled from CMMI. So all that gets the required rigor in focus.
Okay, right, yeah. Fine. Okay, so Komal, anything you wanted to add?
No, I'm good.
Okay, right, fair enough. Yeah. So the next thing what we wanted to also understand is Any specific benefits or advantages you're seeing, right, on account of CMMI 2.0 in terms of contributing to the high performance culture in the organization, right? So Kamlesh and Murali, do you want to give your perspectives on this? Maybe we'll start with you, Murali.
Okay, sure, Shankar. Thank you. Yeah, I think this is something which is really what I want to start off with is where Ron left off, because he talked about the context of using it as a compliance tool or a reference tool, right? So because that is something which is a very important context which we should look at. Because for me, when I look at it from the previous experience, because I've had the prior revisions where I have worked with the various implementations of the CMMI and even CMM prior to that, is the whole context has shifted right from being a compliance oriented towards more like a reference or a compendium of knowledge. I think this is a big shift that I have seen personally. And the benefits are really outstanding because more recently, last year, we were able to kind of complete one certification on the CMMI version 2.0 also. And I think this was really a great opportunity for me to kind of really look at it and say how the evolution of CMMI has happened, just being reaching a point where it really starting to make relevance, because this is something which is more of creating learning organizations, and how that learning not only comes into the organization, but it is actually feeding back into the model itself. I think that is one major thing that I have seen as a big shift. So that is one very important thing that I would like to kind of touch upon. The second thing is in terms of how the improvements can be shown irrespective of adapting to a particular model, because there are many models when it comes to ISO, CMMI, or any of those things for that matter. But most of the times people do ask me why CMMI or why a specific model. For me, the CMMI, when I look at it, it provides a multidimensional approach. Typically what happens is when you take on a certain, I want to kind of reach a certain maturity, or I want to improve a process, what happens is we end up spending so much time on improving that particular process, or kind of going out and then meeting the objectives of a particular customer or a product. But at the end, we forget about making it meaningful and also making it comprehensive and holistic. Because in the short run, you might be able to meet the current objective, but how do you sustain it? Because the moment the pressure is off, we have generally seen that everything starts falling down, right? So the context of having a holistic approach and a multidimensional view where there are interdependent processes, and then how do you manage the processes and the interdependent approaches is something which is really great. And then how we can really connect the dots so that we sustain it. Once we reach there, how do we sustain? And then how do we kind of meet that objectives? One specific shift that I see, for example, I have gone to various teams and then various organizations. Just the fact that the people who have just undergone, forget the certification or anything like that, the people who have undergone the training, just the training or about the model or understanding the model, a project lead who has gone through the model training and then not gone through a model training, their approach to how to improve and then how continuous improvement works, the context is completely shifted. I think there is an inherent and an inbuilt mechanism that I think the model brings in towards pushing the entire knowledge of the organization towards the high maturity. I think that's something which I would like to add.
Very, very insightful points, Murali, right? So Kamlesh, you wanted to add from your point of view?
Yeah, so, so that's a very good perspective, Murali has already shared in detail. Just few thoughts, I would like to, mention here is, see, even the earlier models, have played a key role in terms of, sharing the benefits and adding a lot of value for the organization. But specifically, coming to, CMMI v2.0, there's a considerable focus and emphasis on performance management now, right? Okay, and that's what is, really, bringing in a big change. And, we saw that and we discussed it in the Ron's presentation, as well. There's a big, shift from, looking at the compliance orientation, versus a performance orientation. So in all of my, conversation, with my clients and, whatever, appraisals and meetings that I've been involved in, I mean, this is something that's, that's coming out in a very strong way. So that connect, between the process improvement program versus, the performance, management activities that have to be carried out. Okay. So that linkage is very, very strong now in CMMI V 2.0. And I think that, that really adds, lots of value. And not only that, I think it's making, a lot of things easier, even, even for the process teams, right? So, I mean, in the old models, I remember a lot of time, the non-process, staff or the non-process people would kind of find questions saying that, what is an ROI? Or, what do we get out of it? I mean, so is, using CMMI more for an appraisal or more for an compliance and things like that. So I think those kind of, questions can be better answered now. And, one of the document that, really helps to do that, I mean, is the performance report now. I mean, so, so we have a performance report that clearly outlines, that what is the, benefit that organization has received in. Okay. And I think, that's something that will, highlight the tangible, value that an organization has received in. So I think this is a, very, very vital element. And the second aspect is, getting in the buy-in and getting in the support from senior management is becoming, more easier, in CMMI V 2.0. I mean, it's just not because of the GOV element I'm saying, of course, I mean, there's a very great emphasis now on senior management involvement, through GOV coming in. But even by, showcasing the performance improvement, which is getting documented into the performance report, I mean, I'm sure, I mean, that makes it easy for all of the process teams. And I'm sure, I mean, my view can be echoed in by, Murali, Komal and Leena, that, I mean, how better it is or how easy it is now to tackle the senior management team now, right? Okay. So I think, yeah, those are a few of my thoughts. Yeah.
Now, many times new customers ask me, if I undergo a CMMI level 5 appraisal, am I likely to see a lot of benefits? I tell them it depends, it depends on whether you complete the appraisal and then also shut down your CPG team or you continue to sustain it. While it is very easy for me to make that statement, right? We have veterans in this panel who have not only, helped their organizations achieve the high maturity level the first time, but also sustain it over a period of time and improve, right? So we would like to listen from you, Leena, in terms of what are some of the trade secrets through which, you sustain high maturity culture in the organization and also, make it to contribute to high performance.
Okay. Personally, being with the CMMI journey since at least last 16 years in this organization of Capgemini, we've heard or rather understood these tricks the hard way. But to quote some of the ingredients, I think the first that comes to my mind is a top-driven approach, right? So where the leaders send out message that we are in together. So it's not just you who's doing the statistical analysis and presenting and giving me an ROI, but I'm there with you equally contributing to it. The second, I believe, is more from a digitization perspective. Often we see in terms of some impediments, when the deliveries team start looking at this as an overhead, so they feel I have to collect the data, I have to analyze it myself, and then I have to make some interpretations out of it. I better do my delivery instead of doing this, right? And that's the impediment for sustenance that we usually see. So before that thought clicks in, I feel the right automation and tools in place can give the required focus and momentum to this entire drive. The third, I believe, is, or rather, which I would like more, is I would rather call it user experience. Typically, we coin this when we talk in terms of our clients, right? When we say we want to help our clients, where we want to give them a value add, we say we need to have a user experience element with them. So why not get the delivery teams under the focus, because they are also users of the high maturity journey, right? So can we weave an implementation framework or an approach that gets aligned and puts the user community into the pivotal focus first? I would like to quote an initiative or a program at Capgemini here, which I believe has achieved success because of attending to these ingredients for that matter. We call it automation and productivity enhancement. In short, the APE program. It's now become a global priority and sponsored by our group CEO as well. As the term gives out the feeling, it has a coined approach both from a process standpoint as well as an automation standpoint. So from an automation standpoint, it has a platter of levers which look at different life cycles, which look at different problems, maybe an incident proactive prevention, or reducing the monitoring time, the service management time in terms of development, looking at different phases, life cycles, etc. From a process standpoint, it has levers, for an example, looking at our process efficiency, the value stream mapping, demand capacity analysis. So a whole lot of levers in this platter. The focus being fourfolded. One, we need to engage the employees within the organization. Secondly, to address our internal margins as well. Most important is from a customer standpoint. So go beyond just the contractual commitments and do much better and value add for our clients. So typically we start with fixing goals which are fixed and discussed with the leadership. So from there, it gets percolated down to the business units and the project teams. We then have predictions where the savings are computed and the project knows that, okay, we have an X amount of savings to be contributing to, and then that contributes at a high level at an organization level. We have tools in place where the analysis is being done after the data gets fed in. We have the quality and the delivery teams joining hands to form an army of change mentors, which facilitate and support this implementation. And a rock solid governance, I should say, whereby the control tower monitors this entire program. And at different levels, we have leadership interventions and meetings to supervise this entire journey. And I think that has yielded us a lot of benefits in this duration. I think we started this journey about 1.5 years ago, and great going till now.
Okay. Yeah, very interesting, Leena. Thanks for that. So Komal, do you want to share your experiences on this topic?
Yes. Thanks, Shankar. That's a very interesting question about how to sustain and how to keep everyone interested in between the two assessments. So Leena, thanks for sharing your story. So when we looked at this sustenance part, we went to the core of CMMI philosophy, and we try to understand as to what is it that we need to do as an organization and what is it that CMMI really focuses. So we've already seen that CMMI basically talks about certain practices or certain processes which are very proactive in nature. Now, anything that is very proactive does not really get highlighted. It's like, if I walk every day for 5 kilometers, I don't know whether I'm preventing a heart attack or a blood pressure. Right? Now, you cannot predict what you can save. So how do you convince your client, or how do you convince your management that this is important? And that is where we went again, the entire team, we went to our tables and we saw and we brainstormed. And then we said, what is the behavior that we want to drive here? So we saw that at any point of time, suppose we have around 4,000 projects, we have 20 projects which are always in high and critical risk. And for those 20 projects, the management attention and the management time is the highest. Now, the way we are brought up, or the way we are tuned to, is that we always reward the heroism. But what about the patrons? So we said that we are looking at these 20 projects, everybody right from the CEO is looking at these 20 projects. What about those 3,980 projects who are doing well? And that got us thinking. And we came up with a framework which made sure that we rewarded these 3,980 project managers for doing things right. And CMMI helps you to do that. So we came up with the very simple thing. CMMI is all about following what you're supposed to follow. You don't have to do something rocket science. You just follow and you'll be there. So we define certain things or certain expectations at the project level, at the account level, and at the delivery unit level. Now here's another interesting thing. nobody could compete with each other, and they could only succeed if they cooperate with each other. For example, if every account for every project in an account reached level 5, then and only then the account reaches 5. And if every account reaches 5, the delivery unit reaches 5. So with this, what happened was, there was, instead of a push, there was a pull. So that made that every project wanted to, which was eligible, wanted to be at level 5 and wanted our help. Now it was this philosophy and everything is very nice. I mean, this framework really sounded interesting, but that meant a lot of our time. That meant a lot of the consultation, because now there were so many projects who wanted the model, who wanted the baselines done, who wanted the high maturity practices implemented. And the time that we had, or the workforce that we have, is going to be limited. Now, how do we do that? And that is where, again, we had all the dashboards, digitized, which made sure that each and every project manager and their senior management know exactly where they are at any point of time. Similarly, every month we have a dashboard which announces to them where they are in terms of which level they are right now. So that really helps them to go to the next level. Now, this was again about the dashboards, which could simplify the simple things, like maybe, not the simple things, but the usual things like the work product, the audits, the different SMRs. But what about baseline? Baselining requires a statistical expert. Baselining requires the metrics time. And that is where we came up with BGNI, which basically allowed, the automated tool, which allowed the baselining to be done by every project manager. So, it is installed on every project manager's desk, and he can just, go there. So that statistical analysis is automated, and that encouraged everyone to do that. So that is the secret which I'm releasing it out to all of you today.
Wonderful. Thanks.
We are in the third year this year, and we are going great.
Very wonderful and impressive, Komal. Right?
Thank you.
I think we may have time for maybe one more question, right? So this question, I would like to ask Murali, right? So Murali, many times what happens is, when I'm talking to my customers, right, they say we would like to keep, digital projects out, or, the new generation projects out, or, somebody says we have got a particular division which has got more of a startup orientation out, and so on, right? But at the same time, these projects also have, they have objectives to meet and, value to be delivered to the customer, right? And the reason why they want to keep these out is because there is somehow a perception that, the high maturity and frameworks like CMMI bring in a bit of overhead, right? So any thoughts, any suggestions in terms of, how these kind of projects can also leverage on the high maturity practices and, derive value?
Komal, first of all, I would like to kind of pick on what you touched upon was the heroics. Really well, very, very well taken. So I have a lot of experiences seeing that kind of a perspective. So thank you for sharing that. That's really nice. But just to kind of give you a little bit perspective, Shankar, on the question that you asked, yes. Yeah, I am a new age project, or when I kind of do a project, I implement a process, or I just go CMMI, then probably my innovation will come down, or this is going to now create a lot of bureaucracy in the system where somebody will be watching me all the time. So all these things, yes, I have heard. But to be a little bit more specific, my experience has been that bureaucracy is in places where there is no process, because it is held by an individual or a group of individuals, and then they control everything. The knowledge has to be in the system, and the system is defined by its processes and the robustness of its processes. And the day we are able to kind of demonstrate that the knowledge is the process, and then the system is able to take care of itself irrespective of the individual. To some of you who talked about the attrition or any of those things will be self-managed to a certain extent. And I can also tell you that over the last 5 to 7 years in general, fairly, I can comfortably say that I have been able to kind of figure out ways and means to manage single point failures, where when somebody said that this person, if he or she exits the organization, then the project we will have to take back, or the project has to go away, or this project will not sustain. That has never happened. So I think this is something which is the strength of the processes and then how we codify that knowledge into the system, right? And I also want to touch upon one more perspective in terms of creativity versus the execution part, because people keep saying that once I define my process or once I follow process, then my creativity is lost. The problem is each time they're spending all their creative energies to figure out how to circumvent or how to kind of prevent things from happening. The fact that their whole innovation is their time on innovation actually spent on figuring out ways and means to just deliver. Rather, if there have been a system and a method which can separate out the creative processes to the execution processes, once the ideation or the creative process is complete, then I kind of hand it over to the execution processes. I can generally be rest assured that there is a delivery or an outcome which the customer wants. I think that's the key. People really kind of miss that whole point, because it has to be a sustainable approach. Plus, it also has to give you the freedom to perform or innovate or kind of go out and then do innovative things or new things. That can only be sustained when your business or your overall ability to deliver is always perfect. So 2 questions I always keep asking my team, myself, and everybody, whether it is CMMI, whether it is version 1.2, 1.0, agile or anything. How do I demonstrate that I deliver the best quality products? You need to ask yourself and your team and everybody again. How do I know that my team and my organization is the most productive? The day you are able to kind of keep answering those questions time and again, sustainably and predictably, I think you would have had your answer.
Thanks, wonderful, Murali. So Kamlesh, even though it's a high maturity session, Mukul may not be very happy with any variation, but still any final words?
So yeah, so I think just quickly, I know Mukul is, already he's put on his video, giving a signal that guys, wind up. So so I think, I will not take much time, but, just want to add, I think this point has been coming up, many times in many of the meetings, that, there's an element of an overhead and it's making it more bureaucratic and things like that. I think whenever this point has come in the meetings, very often I have, started a kind of a little technical discussion that, okay, fine. I mean, which PA or which practice area of a CMMI, we believe that, is creating a, overhead. And I think once it gets into that, then, I mean, very often we realize that it's not really a practice area, but probably, I mean, the way the process has been structured in the organization, it's not been structured very well. And that is what is creating an element of an overhead. So it's not that practice area per se, but it's the way we have defined that process. So I think that's where I think we may have to get into detail and, see whether the structure of that process is defined accurately in the context of the organization and what is really needed. And it's not really the practice area that's, that needs to take the blame for that.
So thanks again. Thanks Kamlesh, thanks Leena, thanks Komal, thanks Murali. We appreciate your time and inputs. Have a great evening.